This is the Breakfast Club podcast. We are going to let this kind of play out the way that we think is best and just go what happens as our normal conversations. So, we're going to have our free talk period for now. So, as we were talking about people with eyeballs, um,
God.
you've got blue ones, you've got green ones, there's something called a hazel, I don't know, brown, black, whatever those people are. Um, Actually,
God.
one of my coworkers has eyes that are so brown that they're like almost pitch black. It's wild
Oh
how
yeah.
some people's eyes are almost like you can barely tell that they have like an iris
Oh yeah.
because their eyes are just so dark. I mean, I think it's cool. I don't know. Some people are like, "Gosh, brown eyes are so boring," but it's just like,
Yay! I compliment it.
anybody who says that brown eyes are boring, and it's just any eye can be pretty. It's just whether or not the person can actually put
it's
any emotion into their eyeballs.
it's all in
Yeah.
the eye of the beholder.
In
Well,
the
the other thing is
eye
too.
of the
There's like,
butthole.
oh my God. Well, the other thing is too. There's like this thing that's been going on for a couple years now, where they legit like take a picture of your eyeball and like with the lighting of it, you can actually see all of the colors within that person's eye. And since people that have almost dark eyes, it'd kind of be interesting to see like what what gets picked up by that kind of photo.
My gay best friend has a picture of my eyeball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay, this is the completely like, well, it's not unrelated. It's entirely
Yeah.
related. But
Because we were talking about pictures.
but not only are we talking about pictures, but he has a picture of my eyeball because we ended up getting onto this conversation before, and
Oh.
I don't know how it happened, but it just kind of happened.
Hmm.
And then eventually he was like, "Yeah, I don't really care about people's like dick size or like their ass size. I am really interested in like people's eye colors and patterns." And then he like took pictures of a couple of our coworkers' eyes, mostly to see like what colors they were with the flash on and everything. Um, and it turns out that my eyes are like a sort of like grayish blue type of hazel. So, and I think it's interesting how people's eye colors could vary. I find it really interesting when someone has those like what is it called, the dual chromatic eyes, to where it's like one eye is
Oh
black and one eye is
yeah.
blue. I forget what it's called, but I find that kind of stuff like really interesting. It's just really
Hmm.
cool when people have two different colored eyes. I wish I had two different
Yeah.
colored eyes. I could if I got contact lenses, but that's not the
Yeah.
same.
Fun
It's
fact:
not quite the
whenever
same.
the first time I ever went to an eye doctor appointment to get checked to see if I needed glasses, he put the machine up to my face that he like looks into my eyeball with,
Hmm.
and started like mildly losing his shit for a second, then walked out, grabbed another doctor, had him look at it, and for a second I was scared. And then they started taking pictures, and they showed me the pictures, and it looked like I had spider webs in my eyes.
Ah.
Dude, dude, imagine that happened when you were on the operating table and they were checking your eyes. Like the
God.
doctors just
Holy
started
shit!
running out of they were like fucking freaking out and they started running out of the ER and you're just sitting there like strapped to the table, slowly losing consciousness, and the last thing you see is a bunch of doctors going, "Oh my god, that's so weird."
Oh my God.
And then you just pass out and you wake up without a kidney after doing a kidney transplant, and you're like, What happened? You guys just ran away." And oh no, nothing was wrong. We just thought your eyes were really cool. It was they kind of looked like shattered glass. That was probably your soul, what it looked like when we ran away.
Dude, my having my eyes and the doctor showing me that picture, that would have been an arachnophobe's like worst day right there for a
Oh my
moment.
god! Imagine if that was what Ryan's eyes looked like.
Oh my
Oh.
God. Oh man.
No, I used to go to school with a guy who was like the biggest arachnophobe, but so big of an arachnophobe that you could not believe that he was an arachnophobe and that he was just faking it. Like
Oh.
you show him a very crappy like kindergarten drawing of a spider, and he would start freaking out and like seizing up a little bit over it.
Hmm.
You mentioned spiders, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And you want to know why he he got like jumpy at some points, but you want to know why his fear of spiders started?
Hmm.
Apparently, it's because his dad doesn't know when to fucking like reel it back for a second. Because apparently, one day he was like in his living room, I guess, and there was a spider on the floor. And he told his dad about it. His dad pulled him aside, grabbed like a 2 liter bottle of soda or whatever, and started just hitting the fucking thing and yelling at it. You won't touch my son! Like what? Like he's battling a dragon or something like that.
What?
Dude, I have a bunch of I have a handful of stories of this guy.
Oh my god! What?
Oh my
I have never
God.
heard of an arachnophobia like starting because of something like that, but that is actually amazing.
There are people who like there are people like Ryan who I'm pretty sure he said his fear of spiders started when he got chased through like a field by a camel spider. Those fuckers are not small.
Yeah.
It's chasing him.
Yeah.
That
I
makes sense. You won't touch my boy.
there was one kid I knew. I'm not sure if he actually ever grew like an arachnophobia or not, but we were like all on a field trip to this one place where it was like it was a museum for the forest kind of thing. Like it was basically to talk about like forest conservation, forest preservation, all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, well, the thing is, we were all like standing near a fence post because our tour guide was like, "Oh my God, look at this spider! It's a like it was a daddy long leg, and it was like really like daddy long legs. I think are kind of cool looking. But the thing is, I've never seen a daddy long leg jump, and this little
Like
No,
they
fucker.
jump.
no. Okay, I have something after you finish,
Okay,
Levy.
well the thing is, this daddy long leg legit jumped on this kid, was all on his head. Kid started running around, started like beating his head. And the thing is, like, I was kind of laughing because he had already kind of like done shit towards me, but basically,
Imagine if it was like a much scarier spider, like a tarantula or something like that.
yeah,
He's just like, oh,
because
it's actually kind of fuzzy, and like goes to pet it, just like
yeah,
suctions to his face.
I have yeah, it's like I have never seen a long leg jump before, and that was the last time I've ever seen one jump, and I was like, yes, daddy long leg, thank you for doing that.
Okay, so I have a story about my time in Boy Scout camp. Um,
Oh gosh.
so Boy Scout camps, they aren't used year round, but the tents, from
Mhm.
what I gathered, the tents are left out there all year round.
Oh yeah.
And what basically happened is I you bunk with one other person, except for me. I was lucky and I had a tent all to myself. So I could masturbate as furiously as I wanted to in the middle of the night. And the worst thing about it is that as soon as you fucking the moved the tarp of the tent to get in, as soon as you moved it, it would be like a colony of daddy long legs that just huddled up into the corner to get away from you.
Oh my god.
And it was like you had like spider eggs all up in the corners. There were hundreds of daddy long legs. And at first, I like tried to like swat them out and get them out of the tent, and then eventually, I was just like, you know what? They're more afraid of me. I'm just gonna lay on this fucking uh, cot.
Yeah,
That's
if I hear a
what.
crunch, I'll know
Yeah.
I won.
Shut the hell up. But like, that's how I know that arachnophobes, like that's their worst nightmare right there, because the place that you're sleeping, a spider can come in and out of freely, like there's nothing that you can do to stop it from happening.
Oh, yeah.
And it's I find it to be hilarious, because all I can think
Man.
about is that, like, as soon as an arachnophobe would open that up, they would run. They wouldn't be able to stay in the camp. And Boy Scout camp is actually the one and only time I got bit by a black recluse, and that was
Oh man.
A
horrible.
black recluse?
A black
Uh,
recluse. It is a spider to where its venom will start to rot your skin,
mm-hmm.
and
I've heard
it
of a brown
is.
recluse, never heard of a black one.
That's what it is, a brown recluse. I don't know why I said black. But
I
but
I had done a report on brown recluses when I was in second grade, so I wasn't gonna say
Second grade?
anything.
What kind of school did you have?
Well, this is also the
books,
teacher that forced
Daniel,
me.
books.
Dude, in second grade, I was lucky to see the smartest kid in class not eating paste for once.
Well, this is also the teacher that shoved me into the speech class.
Ah,
But basically, yeah, she wanted us to learn how um, wanted us to learn how to type on Word and keyboards because that was such a big thing at the school. So I had to do like multiple reports, and like literally, I had to do this one report about farmers, and I said I liked farmers because they make pizza.
What?
it was second grade.
Well, the thing is, I was thinking of it. Well, if you make the dough without wheat, and that you need a farmer for that. Okay, you have tomatoes for tomato sauce. Then you have a dairy farmer for cheese. So my brain went, "Oh, I like farmers because they can make pizza." Second grade me had their priorities straight.
Well, you're doing God's work.
Oh my god. Anyways, now that we've had those couple little stories done,
Oh yeah.
let's move on to the main topic that I wanted to bring up today. This is going to be the only time that I think I will keep a topic from you guys. I just wanted to kind of keep it a little bit.
You want a drum roll?
Sure. If you
Really
want to
the
be,
mysterious.
if you want to, it's not even. Our drummer's supposed
Oh
to-
yeah.
Anything now?
It's bad that I'm slightly judging your drumming.
And we're going to be talking about humanity, our
Oh
favorite
yay.
subject.
Oh yay. The thing that we constantly talk.
I'm already dying thinking about this.
And I am not talking about, like, I want you guys to think long and hard about this, because what I want you all to do is I want you guys to try and convince me why humans deserve to live.
Is it bad that I'm like the opposite?
Listen, I know every single one of us is the complete opposite, and we think humanity should die. But I
hate playing devil's advocate. You know that?
I want you guys to try your absolute hardest to convince me that we belong on this planet.
I guess we made pizza.
I guess we make pizza.
Hold on. I got something. Hold on.
This is like the longest.
Who's gonna
hold
take
on.
care of this good boy?
That was so anticlimactic.
Who's gonna take care of them?
Oh my god. I don't even know what you're talking about.
In Discord, it's a picture
Oh, you
of a
sent
puppy.
it in Discord?
Yes. What? Did you think I was gonna text that?
Okay,
shit
that
to
that
you?
is that is a good boy. That is a good boy. However, Um, I think because it's like I've taken like so many like history classes and like anthropology classes showing how sucky humanity's actually been towards different groups of people. It's just kind of like, ugh.
If you ask me, the reason I think humanity should stay going is that way they can unfuck up the world that they fucked up to begin with.
But are the
Okay.
majority of but wait, is the majority of what we have fuckers or fuckies?
Yeah,
Well,
and
either way, humanity, it doesn't matter who did it or not. Somebody's gonna have to step up and actually try to fix this shit.
yeah, but what I'm meaning is like obviously, a lot of people from day to day, right now we're not going to talk about like the super big stuff. We can save that for
Oh
later, or
yeah.
just not talk about it at all.
Yeah.
It depends on how long this runs for. But what I want to talk about is the fact that the average person that you see every day, when you're driving down the road and
Mhm.
you see like a person on the side of the freeway or on the side of the road, like they're pulled over, emergency lights are flashing,
Mhm.
just everybody's driving past them. And
Yeah.
I've driven past people like that before. Nobody stops by to see if they're fine or anything,
Yeah.
or if someone is trying to hitch a ride. Everybody just keeps driving
Mhm.
past them, because your first instinct is, oh, well, there's a bunch of people here. Somebody will help him, so I don't.
Yeah.
And
But
I understand that humans have like this sense of self preservation, but at the same time, they use that to be assholes. Like, look at how people
Yeah.
drive. Like,
Mhm.
Daniel, I definitely know that you understand how
oh
stupid
yeah,
people are when they drive, and it's like a lot of the stuff that they do, we also do. Like, I know I've cut people off just because they were in my blind spot and I didn't see them, and it's just like, oh shit, sorry, but you've got that
Mhm.
person behind you either like honking their horn at you or like in their car they're screaming at you for being an asshole and that you're a fucking idiot. Question why you're able
Mhm.
to drive.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just want to know, like, do the little things matter? Like, does stuff like that make people bad? Like the average person? Because I know, like, the average person is, in my opinion, the average person is always neutral if you don't know them.
Mhm.
And, like, I don't know the average person,
Yeah.
so do those small things that they do um make them bad people, or do intentions matter? What about humanity? What about humans makes it to where the ends justify the means for us?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and speak out of personal experience with
Mhm.
like the guy being broken down on the side of the road, or for uh like a hitchhiker or something. For a
Yeah.
hitchhiker, it's pretty reasonable why you don't pick up hitchhikers. It's because they could be sick. They could be crazy. They could be hopped up on something. I mean, it's dangerous for hitchhikers too to just hop into someone's car. So I mean, it's more surprising that if they're not one of those people that's crazy hopped up on something or whatever, that they're getting into a random stranger's car because suddenly they have no control over where they're going now.
Mhm.
And it's not like they can just sucker punch the guy in the driver's seat and just take control without crashing most of the time. Uh, but yeah, I'll pick up hitchhikers when the backseat of my car looks like a police car.
I'll pick up hitchhikers in the back of my car.
Wow.
Looks like a police car.
There's a cage behind me separating me from them. I'm not picking anyone up unless there's something to make sure that they aren't gonna like be able to threaten me with something. I mean, they might still have a gun too. You never know.
But the same
And you
thing could be
can't.
said about Uber. Uber is
Yeah.
literally Uber is the same exact thing, and same thing with taxi cabs. You're picking up random people that you don't know. So what
The
makes that
difference.
Yeah.
different?
The
And
difference is you get paid.
okay, yeah, you get
The
paid, but at the
difference is you
same
can pay.
time, you still have the same risks.
You still
Yeah.
have the
So
same risks, but I mean, same. I mean,
But why shouldn't
Mm.
you extend a helping hand to someone who's trying to find help? What if they just need a ride to somewhere and their car is broken down and they have an emergency and nobody's helping them? They don't have a phone, their phone's dead or broken or something or other.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's like in the past, like I want to say maybe like in the 60s or 50s, it wasn't uncommon for like hitchhikers to be picked up and everything.
Exactly. I had
And
heard about that,
so yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm curious about what caused it to change. And I mean, I know a
yeah,
little bit is that a lot of people became untrusting of one another,
yeah,
and I just want to know, why is one thing better than the other? Why
Uh,
is it
yeah,
okay to leave someone on the side of the road when it's not your job?
there
yeah.
was
Because well, the other thing too is like with taxi drivers, I'm not sure if Uber's fixed this or not, but like I from what people have said to me as to like why they take taxis instead of Uber is that with taxi drivers they have a background check compared to an Uber driver. I'm not sure if they've changed this in the last couple of years or not, but basically some people felt safer to go into a taxi because that person was background checked. Didn't mean that it was safer for the taxi driver, but it made some of the passengers feel more comfortable going into a taxi than with Uber.
uh,
But you
there
go.
was actually I think part of the reason is that a lot of hitchhikers and people who picked up hitchhikers started talking about the crap that they heard, the stuff that they've seen
Hmm.
from these other people, these strangers, and everything. And the reason I say that is because there is a very well-known hitchhiker. I can't remember his name. It's been a while since I saw the video where he was actually interviewed. But he was talking about like how he was basically just a drifter, just going from state to state and everything, hitchhiking
Hmm.
and whatnot. And he would I mean, he obviously wasn't the person being crazy in a lot of these cases, but these people who would like pull over and pick him up and everything, it would basically be just like this long, awkward drive with another person, maybe some small talk, but towards the end of it, suddenly it was like everything was out there. Like they were just suddenly an open book letting out their life stories. He's had murder confessions given to him because it's these two people who don't know each other, who are never going to see each other again. And so
Whoa.
now it's there, but it's not like either anyone can do anything about what's said.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, he's had people straight up tell him that they were thinking about raping him
Oh.
before dropping him off.
Oh my God.
It's like, I mean, granted, this is a very good reason why you shouldn't hitchhike yourself. It's probably better to just truck it out on foot. But
Hmm.
a lot of these hitchhikers and everything too. I mean, I know you don't go based on like appearance or anything like that, but they don't exactly look like they're the most savory bunch either. They look like they could be, the kind of person to pull out a Glock in your car or something like that and tell you to take them to this random place so they can shoot you and take your money in your car and do whatever.
all right, well, let me share you a bit of a thing. A lot of hitchhikers are,
Yeah.
for one way or another, they are. A lot of the times they are a homeless individual or they are
Yeah.
a drifter, like you just talked
Oh
about.
yeah.
Um, One thing I want to put out there in favor of this is that a lot of the times, just because someone looks the way that they do is not necessarily because of like how they are, but it's because of just how their life has ended up.
Yeah.
And there is one story that I saw that makes me a lot more sympathetic towards people who are hitchhikers. And there was this homeless guy who was in, I think it was New York. And he was asking people for meals and stuff. And, he was like the stereotypical homeless guy. He looked tattered. He looked like he'd been out there and, like, been out there in the weather for years at this point. He hadn't gotten a new change of clothes in forever. And what ended up happening is that someone finally came along and he was asking people if they could just buy him a meal. The money
Mhm.
that he'd been able to accumulate ran out, and no, and he was taking odd jobs as a handyman because he used to be a
Yeah.
utility worker. Um, and the person ended up taking him to a place to get a hot meal. And when they went over to the vending machine to get a soda, he asked the person to if they could get another drink, and the person, um, rightfully so, in these cases, a lot of the times this is very common. They were worried that the person was going to ask if they could buy them alcohol instead of like a water or a soda.
Mm.
And the man replied with, "I haven't had chocolate milk in years." And I feel like that story, and it's just like the fact that the most basic thing, something that I can get in a small box at my work for free, or even at the store, I can get a half gallon for $2, or maybe a little bit more right now because the price is raising up. But still,
Yeah.
stuff that's insignificant to me. That man had been out there for so long that he couldn't even afford something like that. And when you
Mhm.
see these drifters, a lot of them are like that guy. Because the one thing about humanity is that the masses are judged by the minors.
Yeah.
Because people will get an experience of a few people that are of one group. Um, and that one group will create the basis of what people go off of. And it's been that same way for a really long time for so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to I want to understand why, just because you don't have to help the person and the person doesn't look savory, why you shouldn't help them,
Mm.
because this is what led us down to where we're at now. Before,
Yeah.
people would help other people, but then there's this one person who decides to start killing people who are hitchhikers, and then everybody stops.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things to where it is so astronomically small of happening to you yourself that once, and this is on part the news's fault, because the news will take this story and make it a headline. And the bad thing about this is that the news so frequently takes an evil person and gives them the fame and recognition that they set out to kill for. So
Yeah.
once you do this, you're giving the person exactly what they wanted, and at the same time, you're hurting people and instilling an unnecessary fear in everybody else, to where you have stuff like this now. No one wants to help out the homeless,
Yeah.
and the homeless now are resorted to just smoking and drinking alcohol because there's nothing left for them to do. They know there's no way out anymore. They know that
Mhm.
no one's going to help them, and people are only going to give them chump change. So why not just drink themselves to death? Why not smoke themselves to death?
Yeah.
There's no point, is there?
And
Probably,
it, you can go, Daniel.
I was just gonna say that probably part of the reason why a lot of people are still very apprehensive about it is uh, due to like, well, I guess kind of like you said, uh, how a lot of them will act and everything. And I'll go ahead and speak again on a little bit of personal experience because I actually, at one point, I don't think I ever told either of you this, but at one point, I, I essentially was homeless. There was like this homeless
Mhm.
shelter that my mom and me and my sister had stayed at one point. And I mean, you couldn't trust anyone there. I mean, all of them were either addicts or they were just not good people. Like I'm pretty sure like if I had like a break or something like that and I managed to like get like a TV or whatever so that way I could like maybe hook up a DVD player to it when I got it or something like that, I'm pretty sure I would find that TV gone the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So at least for me or and probably a lot of other people who've been through something similar, you tend to grow a distrust towards the homeless because you know that if given the opportunity, they're going to step on you to climb to the next rung.
This is true. An unfortunate thing is that a lot of addicts will steal um, and do whatever they have to get their fix of whatever it is they're addicted to. And I mean, logistically, I mean, it's on part both their fault and not their fault because it's a situation to where someone seduced them into trying something to alleviate the pain that they've been feeling in their life. And once they realize that there's no way out on their own, they
Yeah.
just stick it out for the long run. And I I've seen a lot of homeless people. Um, there's a part of my town that is particularly full of
Mm.
homeless people. Uh, well, not my town, the city that's nearby me. There's a there's one specific area to where there's a lot of drug addicts, and it's depressing to see how many people there are in that area. And that area is essentially unlivable to the public now because of who lives there. There's just so many drug addicts that you don't know who's safe, where is safe. You know, you don't know anything. Anything could happen, and there is like an increased murder rate in that area
Yeah,
Mm.
because of
so
those drug addicts. But at the same time, it's also because that place hasn't seen any new development in like 2 decades,
Yeah.
and it's just been left there. And it's a thing that happens to where you'll get a certain population of drug addicts, and then the city or the state just abandons that area, and then it just becomes a drug haven, and nobody wants to live there anymore. And it's a situation that happens to a lot of people that are low income, is that they get stuck in these places because the places there are cheap, but they're cheap because there's a bunch of drug addicts all around the place, you
it's
know?
high risk. I mean,
Yeah.
they have it's a
Yeah.
good chance that you walk outside at the wrong time of night and get shanked in an alleyway.
Yeah, and I was talking to the girl who cuts my hair, and she was talking about how when she lived up there, um her husband was jumped on the way home, or well, her fiance was jumped on his way home up in that area, and that's when they decided to move down to where I live because they used to live up in the city, and they lived close to that part of the city. And it's like when you hear all this stuff, you're like, okay, well, these people are obviously, like they've made their own choice. They're bad people now, regardless of whatever they do. But I mean, I know we have this constant conversation about
Oh yeah.
humanity, and how bad it is. But I think the reason that no one is inspired to do good is because no one shows good. The only time you can find any story about something, the only time I find any stories about anything good is when I'm scrolling through on Reddit. Like, legitimately, the only
Yeah.
stories I can find are in Reddit pages. You never
Yeah.
see any of this being advertised because, it's I don't know what it
Doesn't
is
get
about
you.
humans, but they need this stimulation of hearing about something horrible because when they hear about something good, they're just like, "Oh, okay, that's not interesting. Move on." But when they
Yeah.
hear something horrible, they're like, "Oh, I gotta read this."
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's a. I remember learning about this at one point. It's kind of like a. I can't remember the actual term, but it's like psychological evolution, essentially, where
Hmm.
it's something that we gained as a species because of having to go through a crap load of it. Uh, Basically, we as humans we flock to things that are negative. We love negativity like nothing else because looking at negativity helps us figure out what to avoid, uh, what to do, and everything. If something good is happening, okay, it's fine. It's fine and everything, but there's nothing to take away from that for the most part. Now, if you hear that going into this neighborhood is probably going to get you shot, you stay out of that neighborhood. That's the first thing that goes to most people's heads. If you don't care if the news brings up and says, "Oh, a firefighter saved a kitten from a tree in some rich suburban neighborhood." There's nothing negative about that. I mean, it's a nice little thing. Probably some kid got their pet back safe and everything, but there's nothing that triggers in our mind that's like, okay, well, is there something there that we can use to help us?
Mm. And it's kind of like, even though there's like places like that are like, oh, they're considered the less savory parts of towns, cities. Because the thing is, you can see them in just small towns, even. Because literally the town I grew up in, you had the fancy houses, and then you had the other part of the town, just where basically a lot of the meth labs were. And it's kind of like, because when I was a kid, my father wasn't allowed to drive and stuff. So because he wasn't allowed to drive, I walked around that entire town. So I knew that entire town like the back of my hand. But the thing is, even the sections that were considered the less savory, most of them are just trying to live their normal life. It's just,
Yeah,
yet
most of them,
again,
but it's
yeah.
the fact that, like I said, we flock to negativity. It's built
Hmm.
into our brains.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, you could hear some really inspiring shit to do with like some probably like a single mother or something like that with like three kids working two jobs and everything in this crappy neighborhood that's got a bunch of drug dealers and stuff out there, and she's done a great job of keeping her kids off the streets and off of, and away from that stuff. But that's not the thing that you heard. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure. What you heard is that there's a bunch of drug addicts on the street, which means that there's a big problem with drugs there, which means
Yeah.
that you immediately do not want to go there because you know how drug addicts can be. You run into the wrong person. I mean, you're liable to run into a drug addict just about anywhere.
Hmm.
But it's the fact that it's more likely to happen there that makes people that that makes people not want to go, and it's the fact that we are built to look at that way.
But the
The
other
best we
thing,
can the best we can do is try to identify uh, who we're talking to,
yeah. And the other thing
basically.
is too, it's kind of like, okay, well, you may have homeless people, or you may have just general people making meth labs in a small town. But the other thing is too, you also have like people of higher status also being drug addicts, but that no one looks at them really negatively. Some of them are just like, oh, they just lost their way, they'll be back. And other people are just like, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword slightly. You have people of lower status that are considered drug addicts, and it's like, oh my god, it's this less savory of our town or city or anything, and just like they're a scourge upon society.
The
But then you
reason that
have
is,
these,
sorry.
well, then you have like these higher up people who have money and are getting high off of ecstasy or anything like that, and yet no one's really thinking of them negatively. It's just, oh, they just lost their way, or oh, that person's having fun doing that, maybe I'll want to try it. So it's kind of like you kind of have this double-edged sword slightly.
Well, the reason that is because the difference between a successful person who is doing drugs and a not successful person doing drugs is the successful person either has brought a lot to society or is bringing a lot to society or something meaningful to society. The guy who's working like minimum wage at Dairy Queen flipping burgers and shooting up meth behind the place by the dumpster isn't bringing anything substantial to society. He's not making money, so nobody's going to want him in the first place for the most part. And now he's doing drugs. Definitely nobody's gonna want him unless they're stupid.
But I think that's where we basically have made this like worth kind of thing. It's like, okay, he may be flipping burgers at Dairy Queen, but if you're wanting to get a hamburger from Dairy Queen, you're going to see value in him because hey, he's making a hamburger for me.
Now, you don't. No one sees value in the burger flipper unless you're one of those people who were one of them. I was one of them at one point, so I understand that the people
But
who
the thing
work
is, if you
back
don't
there
have
have
that,
to go through some shit.
but
And
if you
if you
don't have
don't,
that burger, if you don't have that burger flipper, you're never going to get the hamburger.
and you know what the people who work above him are gonna do is they find that he's doing drugs and everything, they're gonna fire him and find someone else who isn't. Unless they are extremely hurting on employees, because in odds are they are hurting for employees, but but jobs like that are a revolving door. All right, just about anybody can get in and work them.
Hmm.
Again, I've seen it firsthand. These really low-paying retail jobs and fast food jobs and everything. It's just one person comes in, another comes out. It's they're always hurting for employees, but they don't give a crap who they hire unless the person who is hired gives them a reason to care.
Hmm.
And like I said, they're not bringing anything substantial. They're not making cures for any diseases. They're not providing new jobs or more jobs or anything like that. They're not doing a service that means that like dozens of house of family of like family households can keep their lights turned on or anything. All he's doing is making it to where Bob from down the street can go and get a Big Mac.
But
And
the other,
even then, the manager like fires him. The manager has to flip some burgers for now until the next application he picks up gets hired.
I want to put in a little bit of input here since I'm a person
yeah,
who works in retailing.
oh yeah,
Um, okay, so we haven't had any drug dealers, but
hmm,
I will say though that there are certain situations to where there are people that float in and out. Um, but you'd be surprised at how much businesses will actually um, give people a chance. And the way like normally I don't really like talking good about businesses because big corporations are pretty fucking horrible. But
yeah,
in terms of Starbucks, in the time that I've been working here, there is okay. Let me give an example of a current coworker that I have right now. She is completely like she has no idea what she's doing. She doesn't apply herself at all. She complains all the time. She tries
mhm,
to vie for extra um, breaks and stuff, and she faked fainting, but she's still
yeah,
working here.
mhm,
And I feel like it's because at the same time Starbucks does make it a little bit difficult on the store manager to let people go, but at the same time there are certain parameters that have to be passed for the manager to like be allowed to let them go because at least what I've noticed at Starbucks is that they want to try and give people a chance to work up the ladder because it's really easy to work up the ladder. I mean, so long as you're good at your job, you can move up to a six-figure salary as a store manager if you really wanted to.
mhm,
Because uh, if you're like a barista for like 6 months, you can become a shift supervisor, and then after being a shift supervisor, you can become a manager for like after a year of being a shift supervisor, and then you can move up even further past that if you really wanted to.
hmm,
And the whole thing about that is that um, there are businesses that are like that to where they try to give people chances if they can, and at the same time there's also businesses that will suck the life out of you. Like there was a guy who was crippled and he
mhm,
worked at Walmart and he had to get a surgery and he couldn't come into work and he couldn't be in work for months. So instead of giving him a leave of absence and letting him come back after he recovered, Walmart just straight up fired him. So you have your like everything there's good and bad, but what I want to know is that like I understand we're sentient. We have intelligence. We adapt. We evolve. And there's one thing that I keep seeing people talk about that they never take to heart, and it makes me upset. And it's the fact
Mm.
that they say that we should learn to be good people and take from good influences, but they only ever talk about negative stuff.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely hypocritical. And you guys know I hate hypocrites. And
Yeah.
what I want to know is why it's so hard. If it's so easy for you to break out of your evolutionary instincts to be a fucking asshole for no reason, when it has nothing to do with your survival or anything, you're just being a dick. Why is it so difficult for us to learn how to be generous with what we have? Because one thing that I make a habit of doing is that, and I started doing this even before I started working at Starbucks and understanding how important tips were. Every time I got like a delivery from somebody, like whether it was like Uber Eats, DoorDash, or someone from Domino's Pizza or whatever pizza place I decided to get food from,
Yeah.
I would always try and make sure like the minimum amount of money that I would give them is like a $20 bill before they left my house,
Yeah.
because a lot of the time, people look down on food service workers. And
Yeah.
I mean, I understand where you were trying to come from, Loki, but at the same time, I'm gonna let you know right now, nobody gives a fuck if you're a burger flipper or if you're a fucking driver. They think you're lower than them.
Oh, I
Um,
know. But
and
it's still the point.
Oh, well, yeah, but that's just the
Yeah.
average person's gonna think you're lowly. The average person's gonna think, oh, you're
Oh
just a
yeah.
driver. You have nothing to offer to society.
Oh yeah.
And
You're
that's
expendable.
yeah, that's not
Yeah.
necessarily the only way that you can offer to society. Sure, you don't have to be rich, you don't have to make inventions, but there's culture, there's art, there's words.
Yeah.
There's plenty more that you can offer to society, but people are so focused on the monetary value of what it
Yeah.
is that you're able to do that they
Yeah.
overlook the small things that people are able to do in when you create communities and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
there's a church that Walmart lets right do fundraisers for, and I forget what kind of church it is. I think it's a Baptist church. Um, and they will go out to the front place at Walmart and try and collect as many donations as they can, and they usually do it before holidays because of a homeless shelter that they run, to where if they raise enough money, they're able to they're able to feed um, a bunch of homeless people up in the city or
Hmm.
down in Baltimore. And Uh, I think that we need more stuff like that where people are willing to donate to this. And it's just like, at the same time, one thing that has been creating a horrible stigma for charities is rich people. Because now there's one thing that I'm really happy about is that a lot of rich people aren't getting away with nearly as much as they used to about 10 to 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because of social media, this is like one of the only positives that I will give to social media ever. Because of social media, it has become a lot easier for people to call out rich people when it's discovered that they're doing something awful. And I mean, just think about some actors that you used to see prominently. You used to see Kevin Spacey, you used to see Mel Gibson all over the place. Like, Mel Gibson was anti Semitic as fuck. He hated Jewish people.
Hmm.
And Kevin Spacey, he was part of one of the most, like, riveting, one of the most popular Netflix TV series of all time. And as soon as they found out something about him, he was gone. He was done.
Yeah.
And same thing with that one college coach who's diddling little boys in the frickin' showers. People found out about that. He was gone.
Yeah.
And like it or not, the whole this one's still a hot topic around places, but the whole Jeffrey Epstein stuff, that's regardless of whether or not he's dead. I'm not going to get into that conspiracy theory. Um,
Mm.
that stuff gets exposed, so it's like there are people trying to do good things, and you hear about it. But like these are some massive things, but people
Hmm.
still only focus on the negatives. They don't look at it. They look at this and they see, okay, I can avoid this, but they don't look at the other side of it and go, this is how I can stop it from happening as well. They just
Yeah.
go, okay, avoid, but not stop. And
Yeah.
it's something that you see all the time, is that you can, like, there are situations all over the place where There's actually a really interesting story to where some Starbucks employees down in Texas, when they saw somebody being harassed and they weren't entirely sure, and what they did was they wrote on the side of the cup that they ordered, asking if they need help and if they need help to remove the lid on the cup. And because the person felt extremely uncomfortable and felt like they were in danger, once they saw the message, they took the lid off the cup, and then a bunch of baristas came out from behind the counter and told the guy to go away and get out of the store.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. They don't just learn how to see and avoid stuff. The people who did that learned how to see something and stop it from happening too.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is like the next point in where we need to develop culturally. I don't give a shit about evolution anymore. We're about as advanced as we can be evolution wise. We're not going to get the
Yeah.
force. We're not going to get telekinesis. We're not going to shoot
Yeah.
lightning from our fingertips. That's not where we're
No.
going evolution wise. We're getting
We're not
weaker
the
and our
X-Men.
brains are getting stronger. That's how we're evolving. And
Yeah.
to adapt to this, we also need to develop more culturally. And
Hmm.
I think something that we need to teach people is that it's good to know how to avoid situations that are negative, but it's also good to learn how to stop situations before they happen. And
Yeah.
because if one person with a knife or something is is trying to go at somebody, and then a bunch of people are walking by and they see this person getting mugged, if they approach the guy with a knife, he's gonna run away.
Yeah.
He's not gonna sit and try and fight a group of 5 people, 6 if the person he was trying to mug starts attacking him. He's not gonna go with that odds because odds are he's gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody will get the knife from him or knock him on his ass or stun him and stab him with his own blade.
Hmm.
And I don't know.
That's you would also have to, for something like that, you would have to actually make it to where not everybody in our country is able to get their asses handed to them by the one guy who does know how to fight. I mean, if you look around, almost nobody knows what to do when it comes to a fight. They're just flailing their hands. At most, they know how to throw a punch without breaking their wrist in two.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, they're with their fight or flight, most people are gonna frickin' run. And
And then you also need to address, well, I mean, at least in a country like America,
Hmm.
or other similar countries and whatnot, our average citizens don't have to put up with a lot of hostility and all that stuff, and not like physical hostility or anything like that. So you have another problem that you have to deal with, and that's that our citizens, majoritively, are a bunch of pussies. Like they aren't gonna want to step in because they're not seeing we're 5 strong, you're one guy. They're saying you have a knife. I may have I you only have I am one of the options that you are going to stab if I step in. They don't that's how they see it. You have two problems, one with people not knowing how to fight and another with people not being brave enough to fight. Because, like you said, I mean, if everybody could go outside knowing full well that if they start messing around, they're gonna get jumped by like 5 guys, then they're not gonna do it. But then you need to actually have those 5 guys to be able to jump them in the first place.
yeah, another thing that needs to be normalized, in my opinion, and I'm trying to figure out how to word this without sounding incredibly narcissistic, um, is
That's always the greatest, like, little disclaimer.
it's just okay. Okay, I
It's
talked
like
to
the best
Daniel.
way of say. It's like the best way of saying, "Look, I know what I'm about to say, but I'm a lot dumber than I'm about to say. I'm more
Okay.
dumb than I'm making it sound."
Okay, what I'm trying to say, I talked to you a little bit about this earlier, like not earlier today, but I think I talked to you about this yesterday, Daniel, to where I was talking about how the way that I think, where I put myself as squarely in the middle as as I mentally can. I
Hmm.
go out of my way to like I want to normalize people going out of their way to see both sides of an argument, both sides of a situation,
Yeah.
and understanding that there's more than just one way to go about something. I want the world to normalize having a thought process to see beyond one option or the other.
I would
And
say for, sorry.
gosh, interrupting me like a little bitch. But
Fuck
there
you.
are certain governments, like the German government, that's the first one that comes to my mind, is that it doesn't have a government system like ours to where it's Republican, Democrat, and then you've got independents, but the independent parties are so small and insignificant that they don't even fucking
Yeah.
count. But in Germany, there's like multiple parties. There's not just one or two major parties. Like there's a bunch of parties that you can
Hmm.
associate with yourself with. And I really like that idea because that's how an actual, democracy is supposed to be. It's not just
Yeah.
supposed to be you got option 1, you got option 2. You either get to contribute halfway or not at all.
Yeah. And that
Because
can even another conversation in itself.
oh my god, yeah. I could talk so much shit about the way that our
Oh yeah.
government is structured, but I just want to I just okay, to kind of get things back on track. I
Mm.
want to believe that humanity can become good because
Yeah.
I myself used to be bad.
Yeah.
And if I can change, I was like I mean, I guess I got on the early boat since I had
Yeah.
my 180. I told this story to Daniel, but I had my 180 when I was in high school, and I think it was
Mhm.
2016, 2017, before I met you guys.
Yeah.
Um, and that's when I had my little 180.
Yeah.
And it was a teacher in a certain class that helped me to kind of like realize exactly why I was being an asshole. But
Yeah.
if we can, if I myself can change the way that I did, because I didn't just change a little bit. I
Yeah.
changed like dramatically because I used to be far right. Like not
Oh
so
yeah.
far right that I would have joined the KKK, but I
Yeah.
was far right enough that before I'm going to admit this
Yeah.
because I don't hide skeletons in my closet. I used to think it was okay to say the N-word.
Oh yeah.
Um and that was a mistake that I was educated in and what it actually means, why you shouldn't say it to somebody,
Mhm.
and honestly, why it just shouldn't be said in public in general by anybody. It should just be a word left to the past and forgotten about.
Mhm.
Because all it does is give people, when you put history behind a word, that word now has power. And if you give that power to people who are terrible, they're going to abuse that power in any way that they see fit. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that I hate about words.
Yeah.
Um, but if I just want to normalize people being able to change because it
Yeah.
seems like people don't want to change because they're like, oh, well, my family's going to hate me or my friends are going to hate
Mhm.
me. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, your friends can hate all they want, but if they're not going to accept you, are they even your friends anymore?
Yeah.
If they don't accept the changes that you make to yourself mentally and physically or whatever you decide to do,
Yeah.
then they're not people worth having around. And if your family's not going to support the decisions you make, then you make your own path through life and you move on without your family. I mean, it sounds kind of fucked
Oh
up,
yeah.
but
Well,
you just kind of
kind
have
of.
to put
Yeah.
their needs behind yours
Yeah.
because you can't help anybody else if you can't help yourself first.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you already know with me too that I was not the best kind of person either in the past. Um
Yeah, you were
like
kind of a dick.
yeah. Clearly 2013, 2012 me was completely different. Um and it's kind of like um Well, like I'm not gonna hide it either. I was homophobic back then, and it's kind of ironic now, but
Yeah, considering how gay you are.
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, it's kind of like I was like that because I was so desperate to have friends. Simply because before I joined up with that group, I constantly never had friends. Like I had a couple friends here and there, but it wasn't like really like lifelong friends or like even like the friendship that I have with like you guys. But just more of like they're acquaintances. I see them at school and that's basically it. Um so I was so desperate to have friends and basically be popular that I basically abandoned who I was before just to fit into that.
Hmm.
And seeing me now where it's like I've changed dramatically, it's like, whoa. But it's also kind of like my father, he had the ability to choose um to basically um start being more like a dad for me or pick partying, and he chose the party. So it's kind of like it shows that it's also still up to the person if they want to change or not, because like with me, I wanted to change. Even though like all those people were no longer in my life and everything, I didn't care. I was like, no, I'm going to be me.
Yeah,
And then
it's the whole
yeah,
saying of you can't help someone if they don't want to be helped.
yeah. And the thing is my father, it was cool at first, but then when he chose to party over us, it's kind of like he made that decision. And that's where it's kind of like you have still this basic concept of like it's still up to that singular person to make a decision as to like I want to be better, I want to change, or they can stick with the status quo of wherever they're at and continue on the path that they're on.
Yeah,
So
I understand that.
yeah.
And honestly, I can understand why people. The one thing that I think people seem to also not understand is that change is not always necessarily viewed in a positive light. People will
No.
always criticize you for changing,
Oh
and
yeah.
it makes people fearful of changing and getting out of the comfort zone because
Yeah.
they're afraid that if they do, they're going to lose all of the people that they're used to talking to, all of the people that they're comfortable with talking
Yeah.
to, and generally it's just people always vie for power, and if they think they
Yeah.
have power over somebody, then they're
Yeah.
going to try and use that power to manipulate somebody in one way or another. And a lot of the times people will guilt trip other people into not changing because they
Hmm.
want to have as many people agreeing with them as they can, so that
Yeah.
whenever they want to spew out their
They're nonsense.
yeah, whenever they spew out their
Yeah.
nonsense, they think they're right. And that's
Yeah.
another thing that I hate. I think that we need to move away from thinking that belief is the same thing as truth, because
Oh
it's
yeah.
not. Belief is a falsity. You
Yeah.
can believe all you can believe all you want that 2 plus 2 equals fish, but it fucking does not.
Yeah.
2 plus 2 equals 4 and nothing else. It will always
Yeah.
equal 4. 2 times 2 will always equal 4. That is the fact of the matter. There is no changing that. It's not 3, it's not 1, it's not 5, it's
Mhm.
not fish, it's not a square, unless you put a 2 above the 2. Then it's 2 squared. But, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same constant no matter what. There's no changing it. There's no right, left, back, forwards that you can do to change it. It's a constant, it's a fact, it's a truth.
I guess to kind of on that a little bit. Uh,
If you try to make
I
an
mean,
argument for 2 plus 2
no,
being fish, I'm going to kill you.
I'm not. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna say 2 plus 2 equals fish. um, what I'm gonna say is, I obviously agree that we need to stop putting our personal beliefs before facts and how the world actually works and everything. personally,
Mhm.
what I do that a lot of people do not do is if something is if like there are facts that conflict with something that I believed in, I try to see most of the time it's like either the facts prove it wrong or I try to see how exactly it fits into my beliefs.
Mhm.
Because I remember one thing whenever this whole like flat earther thing started up. People were talking about like the filament or whatever,
Uh-huh.
this big dome that covers the earth or whatever,
Mhm.
this big blue dome, which is why the sky
Okay.
is blue. And I was and they were referencing the Bible. I'm like, let me look in the Bible and see what the heck that they're actually talking about.
Mm.
And nothing in the Bible gave a definitive answer as to what it was in the first place. And I'm just thinking, well, we know how the atmosphere works, how why the sky looks blue. It's because like refraction or whatever, and all that stuff. Well, it's the filament is the atmosphere.
What do you
You
know? The
cut the
filament
you
is
cut
from the Earth being round.
yeah. I mean, you cut the Earth in half. It's a dome.
I guess it's you've got you've
So
got
that
one dome and then the other one, and then when you put them together, you get a full sphere.
yeah, but that's basically what I do, and uh, but a lot of people don't do that. So, like you said, we need to standardize people actually prioritizing facts over beliefs and everything. They
Mhm.
need to understand that intentions do not are not
Intentions don't matter in the face of facts.
yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
I also want to say conspiracy theories crack me up. Oh my god.
oh yeah, they do.
I after I took that 9/11 depression uh class in high school,
Mm.
oh, there was this one guy um who tried to talk to me about how he thought. I mean, to be fair, this guy was a gigolo, so I mean, already hard judgment. Um, fucking this guy tried to start convincing me that 9/11 was an inside job because steel doesn't melt. And I looked him straight in the eyes and I was like, it doesn't melt, but you know what happens when you heat up metal? It softens. And you know what happens when you put softened metal and you put it under a bunch of, maybe like a couple thousand pounds of pressure? I'm pretty sure it's gonna bend.
It's gonna bend, squish. It's gonna peel apart and
Yeah,
everything.
I'm just like, sure, jet fuel can't burn metal, but it can definitely make it soft.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
when the towers collapsed, it was because there was just too much pressure on like broken or collapsed or shattered steel beams and heated up
Oh
melt
yeah.
and like freaking softened steel beams. So it's like whenever somebody says melted, it's really they just mean softened because,
Yeah.
it's like if you have like if you put a bunch of people on top of one person, eventually the one person's going to give out
yeah.
because
Yeah.
their legs can only hold so much.
Uh,
Uh,
I also wanted to add something else from earlier. With the
Does it
whole
taste like
like
lemons?
people need to hear like help each other out and everything. One thing that we would need to do is we'd need to actually make it to where it's a viable option to help people out. Because I mean, sort of piggybacking off of that scenario that we went with earlier, where it's like a guy's getting mugged in an alleyway. Well, forget anybody else even jumping in the first place. Even if the guy getting mugged is someone with the skill set to be able to defend himself and everything, that man who is still the victim of the scenario, regardless of the of what he's able to do to secure his own safety, he needs to be very careful about what he does, or else he's potentially facing jail time too.
yeah.
Because I mean, sort of think of it like this. I actually a couple days ago I saw a news report that was talking about a scenario that happened in a parking lot or whatever. There was this guy who had gotten back from Afghanistan, was out with his friends. They were walking to their car. It was like kind of nighttime and everything. What happened was this guy comes up to them, starts speaking some nonsense. Basically, I don't remember what exactly he was talking to them about.
Mhm.
They tried to like brush him off and say like, no, we don't have what you're looking for. And then the guy pulls a gun on him, and the guy from Afghanistan is already like he's already in action. He pushed the guy over, knocked the gun out of his hand, and pistol whipped him a couple times with his own gun for good measure to keep him down. He's got military training. He had all of the he did everything he was within his right to do. And by the end of the whole thing, the assailant with the gun was in the hospital, and the guy who saved him his own life and the lives of his friends was the one in handcuffs in the back of a police cruiser.
Yeah, I hate
Yeah.
when stuff like that
I
happens
mean,
because
he was legit. He got charged with a felony offense because he used the gun that was pulled on him to pistol whip the guy
Mhm.
because he was using a weapon that wasn't like registered to his name or something along those lines. It was something to do with the fact that he used that pistol and the fact that it was a firearm that he was actually charged with a felony offense despite the fact that he's the hero of the situation
yeah, he saved his own life.
and the lives of his friends
Yeah, and it's
because
just like,
that thing was that gun was loaded with hollow points,
oh, those are illegal too.
Ugh.
probably in your state.
Yeah, I know.
They're legal over here.
I know a lot of states are starting to make hollow points illegal to the public.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I see stories like that all the time. Like that one Texas guy who beat the shit out of a person who raped his underage daughter. Like he killed the guy, and it's just like I understand why. I very
uh,
much so understand why. But
but
I
Yeah.
feel like there
let's sorry.
it is that beat the guy up who
Mhm.
well, I don't even think he beat him up. I think he killed him. And it's just like I can understand why, but at the same time, people punish other people for that, and it's just like, well, the police aren't doing anything, the justice system isn't doing anything. The guy raped his daughter. What else is there to do but take it into your own hands? And it's like that one story that you told me, Daniel, to where they took it into their own hands to catch a pedophile.
Yeah,
Um,
who was like grooming their 15 this guy's like 15-year-old daughter and everything. So they got together and basically hosted their own sting operation where they texted the guy from the daughter's phone to get him to come over, and they made sure he was coming over. And so the moment he stepped foot into their backyard, the dad ran out and football tackled his ass, and four
Mhm.
other people who were family members came out to help restrain him too. I'm pretty sure they had that guy zip tied on his face by the time by the time he realized what just happened.
Mhm.
But the reason they had to do that was because they showed the cops the text, they showed the cops what was going on, but the cops couldn't do anything about it because the guy didn't do anything yet.
I
He didn't send
feel
any
like
unsolicited dick pics or anything like that. He didn't like, and this is gonna sound fucked up, but by the fact that the 15-year-old daughter didn't send him any nudes or anything like that, they couldn't even get him on child pornography. So there
that
was nothing that they
is
could go after him for.
I yeah, I feel like child grooming needs to be made illegal in every single state.
I think
Yeah.
it is illegal in every single state, isn't it?
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it is. But I wanted to add something else onto the whole like self defense. Like, what are we legally able to do to even help ourselves, let alone others, and all that stuff. And that is like a big thing that we do as people, a lot of us can't afford classes to learn how to fight and all that stuff. So what's the first thing you'd think to do? Keep a knife on you, or keep some form of weapon on you in case somebody tries something.
Yeah, I carry a pocket
Uh,
knife with me all the
but
time.
but there are two main problems with that. There's a lot of good ones that have been made illegal because they're seen as too offensive, like brass knuckles,
Hmm.
which some states have them legal in the form of like them being more like hard plastic knuckles and everything. But a lot of weapons out there, again, also like those extendo like batons that police use and all that stuff, you can't use
Hmm.
those as a civilian. You're legally not even supposed to be able to own one unless, at least not in my state, unless you say it's for checking your tire pressure, quote unquote. Uh, and it's a criminal
That's
charge to even use one in self defense. Uh, but another thing is, crap, I'm losing my train of thought here.
And the stupid comes out.
well, the thing is, it's kind of like this could even tie in with like high school disciplining of like kids and stuff, because it's kind of like
Oh,
there's a lot of high schoolers that will fight back and defend themselves, but then they get a worse punishment than the person that attacked them first,
yeah.
simply because they fought back.
And another thing
I
is,
speak from
uh,
experience.
Yeah.
and another thing is, like I know with that situation with the soldier who came back home and pistol whipped the guy. It was a very specific charge that he got when he pistol whipped the guy, basically.
Mm.
And so what had ended up happening, uh, or so well, what basically can happen for the average person is if somebody is physically threatening you
Mm.
and you have no fighting capability at all. You know that if it goes down, this person could potentially seriously injure you, if not maybe kill you. It
Mm.
doesn't matter if you're the victim in the situation. The moment you pull out a weapon, depending on how bad the other guy looks at the end of that whole fight,
Mm.
you get charged with aggravated assault also.
Yeah.
And it's especially worse for the victim if the assailant wasn't armed to begin with, because I guess some fucked up code of honor that says somebody who has no idea how to throw fists is not shouldn't break out their pocket knife if somebody is gonna start trying to beat their face in.
Your fists are just as lethal as a fucking pencil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't understand that. I mean, yeah, you can break your hand really easily, but a lot of the times in the middle of a fight, who the hell actually feels their knuckle break? I mean, at least they don't feel the pain. They might feel something's off a lot of the time because adrenaline.
Hmm.
But I mean, regardless of the situation, it's hard to even defend yourself, let alone others. So that's something that we need to do if like humanity wants to see a day where we can help others, at least in situations like that. You see a guy getting mugged, we should be in a state to where if as long as it is proven that you are not the one who basically started the fucking thing, who initiated the whole like physical contact and everything, as long as you are not the one who did it, you suffer no legal ramification for defending yourself or someone else.
Yeah, like, honestly, if you see somebody getting mugged and you stop the person from mugging that person and you like disarm them, or if they try to come after you like push them out of the way and try to tell them to get out of the way, and
Hmm.
fucking go back to wherever they came from. If they come after you, then it should just be, they came after you, you were helping somebody else out, and you're off the hook.
Yeah.
And let alone if you were to like kill someone in self-defense, like God forbid, you know, you could potentially be facing murder charges yourself even if it was all in self-defense. And obviously, it should be said that we're not saying that uh, we should be able to go out and like beat the crap out of anybody who looks at us the wrong way or anything like that.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to make it to where it's not like this situation. It's a part of like a story that I heard. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't remember that much of it very well, but I remember the story going something like this. There was a prominent political figure who had actually made it illegal to touch her. If somebody touched her, they would be beheaded. This was back in like medieval times.
Mm.
So one day, I think she was like poisoned or shot or something like that, and her guard was right there, and she was telling him to help her, but because it was illegal to touch her, he was afraid he would get beheaded. And because he didn't do anything and she died, he was beheaded for treason, basically. I think it was what it was.
Hmm.
So it's a lot like that situation right now, where it's like we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. We either receive the punishment for doing what we need to, or we receive punishment for not
I am
doing
so
anything at
sorry.
all. What happened?
Loki,
I'm
that's
so,
not that kind of punishment.
I'm sorry, I sneezed.
That was I didn't know what the fuck happened. I thought
That did not
Casey like.
sound like
I
a
thought Casey was
sneeze.
like hot. I thought Casey like dry heaved or something.
No, I was just like, I was like, oh god, no, don't sneeze. And then it just went Keith. I was trying to hold it until you ended your statement, and it just was like, no, I'm yeeting out of your nose.
I'm eating a couple of bees.
So sorry. I am so sorry.
You're
Oh
good.
my god, you fucking nut.
I have no idea if we're gonna keep that in.
I'm keeping it in. There's nothing wrong with what just happened. I see absolutely no reason why I should not keep that on the internet.
I see this as an absolute win.
I see this as an absolute win. Alright, now, before we get copyright claimed by Disney, well, I don't know. They're still the sexy on my YouTube channel.
That's a conversation for another
I'm
for
gonna
another
openly
podcast.
talk about that. If anybody can find the sex scene, and good luck. Firstly, actually, it'll be really easy because I'm pretty sure it's the thumbnail of that video. So never mind. I'm not gonna give anybody
On which one?
if they find it. Shh. Anyways, I don't have any more faith in humanity, so
Yeah.
I guess
There's
the objective
obviously-
that I set out with, but one thing that I do want to say is that while I don't really have more faith in humanity, I do want to say that we can't improve ourselves if we don't call out the issues. And if enough people
Yeah.
call out the issues and make the push to have those issues changed, then we can actually make the world a better place. And fuck me. The whole process of trying to change the world and the whole process of trying to make it better, to make it somewhere where to make it somewhere we're proud to live in, it's always going to be hard. It's never going to be easy for us. We're always going to have to fight and push for every single strand of progress. And if we don't point out the issues that we have, then they're never going to get solved. So,
Yeah.
we should never be afraid to speak our minds. We should never be afraid to call out something that's wrong. And whenever someone is in danger, you should never feel like you can't help them or that you shouldn't help them. And until we normalize the fact that we can save people, that we can help people, nothing is going to change. And until we can affect that change, the world is going to remain in a pretty sad state, because it's better than it was before, but it's also worse. and
Yeah.
it's going to take a while for us to get to the utopias, if at all, if we ever get there.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to take a long time, and right now the world's in a pretty shitty spot. But
Yeah.
I think the important thing to take away is that we can create our own good and we can create our own paradise for one another if we try hard enough.
Yeah.
And
And
if you don't try, it's not going to happen. Your
yeah.
goals, you can always set them. You might not always reach them, but one goal that everybody should have as an aspiration and honestly as a prerequisite for being human is do good where good is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of like if two people can change, just since because if we're able to see like, hey, we we can't keep doing that, it says that more people can as well. So it's it's still kind of like it's up to us to be able to bring about change. We can't just keep sitting by and let it go by.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And for this podcast sponsor, absolutely nothing because I don't have a YouTube channel that's big enough to get a sponsor.
Yeah, we're all broke.
Raid Shadow Legends.
What a shit of a break if you somehow managed to find a sponsor for this.
Dude, I
Oh
would be
well.
happy, but I'm not happy. So no thank you.
Yeah,
It's the
Okay.
first podcast ever.
I will.
First podcast ever.
Yeah.
Um, I think that is about all that we should talk about before we get off track and lose the entire point of
Oh
this
yeah.
conversation.
Oh
So,
god, yeah.
I hope that anybody who watches this in the future or in the past, whichever one time traveler you want to be, I hope you had
Mhm.
fun, and hopefully we will be back next Monday for another one.
Yeah.
All right, say goodbye, you whores.
See ya.
Bye.